Hi guys, I'm David with Transparency Fitness Live, and we have Ryan Shelton, a PT with a different look at physical therapy, and I'm going to let him introduce himself and talk a little bit about his point of view when it comes to physical therapy.
Cool. Thanks, man. I'm Ryan. Some of my patients call me Dr. Ryan. I still think the doctor thing is like weird, but
Hey, you did earn it. I mean,
Yeah,
in a way. I mean, how long did you go to school for? Like 8 years?
yeah, well, like 7.5.
7.5.
So I'm the maybe a little less of a doctor. I don't know, but I kind of leverage that now because what my company is PhilanthroPT and a physical therapy company. I say physical therapy company because I'm a physical therapist and that's what I'm trained to do, and that's who owns the company. But what we're trying to do differently is we're trying to keep people out of physical therapy. So how we try to do that is we try to get more, the term right now is upstream. We try to get a little more upstream to find the folks who are, almost ready to need to go see the doctor. And so we try to find people out in the community through community events and things like that to try to find folks who a physical therapist can help. And also use physical therapy or use a physical therapist in ways that aren't traditionally thought about being used. I think a lot of folks think about a physical therapist, in the hospital or in a clinic in a strip mall who's doing massage and putting belts on people and walking them and things like that. What we're trying to do is find people who, not just have issues with movement and disability and, cranky shoulders and joints and arthritis and things like that. We're trying to find folks who don't know that they have high blood pressure and they need to go see the doctor or see a trainer. Like,
Right.
We talked about you had a client who is able to get their blood pressure under control.
Yeah, 6
and
weeks.
So we want to find the folks who don't realize they're on the border and get them to someone like you so they can avoid the downstream cost of what happens when you have diabetes and maybe you get on medication that doesn't work and those sort of things. So that's what we're trying to do a little bit differently is we're trying to keep people out of physical therapy. And then, the way that healthcare is set up, you get paid for the more healthcare you give.
Right.
And so we're trying to figure out how can we make a viable business that can support the community and support the business at the same time without having to do so much to people, without having people come in and charge them for, an hour of work when 3 times a week when, maybe they just need to check in once a month, once a week, once every 2 weeks.
Right. So not overdoing things.
Right.
Something else that you had mentioned we had talked in the past is kind of how a lot of physical therapists will attack a single issue when there's multiple issues that need to be attacked.
Yeah, totally.
Because the Medicare, Medicaid, is it Medicare or Medicaid? Or
They're
both? Both. Okay,
Both,
both. Or even just your insurance says, okay, you've got a knee issue, so let's just work on the knee. When, let's be honest, there's so much more around the knee that needs to be worked on, where someone like myself as a personal trainer can come in and assist in strengthening that, but physical therapists may tackle that one issue without really fixing it, right? They may help that issue, but if the rest of the muscles around the knee aren't getting stronger and helping that issue, then they're just going to be right back.
Yeah,
a couple months down the line, 6 months down the line. So teaching people, something else you'd also mention is just teaching people how to identify issues and then how they could maybe help recover themselves, or they could kind of skip going to PT in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's not uncommon if you go to a physical therapist who, maybe works in a corporate type setting. And when I say that, and we've talked about this before, I'm not saying that the physical therapists in town, I love the physical therapists in town.
Right.
They're great people. But some of them work for companies who don't let you do the things that are necessarily helpful. And
Restrictions. They have restrictions
Definitely.
on how they
Yep.
can treat people.
Yep.
And again, at the end of the day, are you really treating someone properly if you can't have the full scope of treatment?
Absolutely. So when you go to the clinic, sometimes you might find if you have a knee problem, everything is revolving around the knee. And what I'm sure you've seen and what I've seen a lot of is sometimes, someone has a pain squatting, lunging, and you put, a 2-inch bumper under their heel, and then the squat pain goes away. And the problem wasn't that, the knee's cranky, but it's not mad because the knee has a problem. It's your ankle's tight and it's making the knee cranky.
Or you have bad form.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
And that lack of flexibility can cause that bad form. But we try to go even deeper than, I think what I used to teach folks in a residency program was, to look when it's a knee problem, you have to look at the ankle, you have to look at the hip, you got to look at the back. There's a lot of things to look at. We're trying to go even deeper than that and make sure that we give folks the time so they understand that, you know, if you're stressed, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're on a bunch of medications that are causing issues,
you're looking at the full scope of like, okay,
health.
Right. So it's not just we have this singular issue, and maybe we're working around that singular issue, but like you're not thinking outside. I almost want to call it thinking outside the box, right? Maybe that's not the right term, but like you're right. Like, are you getting enough water? Are you getting enough rest? Is your life so stressed out that like that's caused? I mean, there's so many factors that go into issues that people have that you could be helping that one specific issue, but then they have 10 other factors that are keeping them from progressing.
Right. And what we find, you know, when I was in those systems, when I worked in that system, we find these things where the repeat offenders, they call it quote unquote repeat offenders. And it's the folks that keep coming back every few months for the same issue. And that's going to happen to some degree. And at that time, like the mindset in the healthcare system.
Could you kind of give us a little background on kind of how you came to these realizations? Because I mean, you weren't. This is kind of a new venture for you, right?
Yeah, we've been doing the business, you know, a little over a year. So,
right.
So you know, before I started the company, 7 to 10 years before that, I trained therapists in an orthopedic residency program. So the kind of the way that works in the physical therapy world, you graduate and you can work anywhere that someone will employ you. You can see elderly folks, you can work with kids, you can work with athletes, you can work with people after strokes, people after cancer. There's just a ton of things that you can do. And then you can go on and get specialized. And that is the group of people who I would train. I would take folks who, you know, general physical therapists who want to be specialized in things like bone, joint, ligament type problems, what we call musculoskeletal, anything related to, you know, movement and pain and those sort of things. So for a long time, I got to see, you know, every year we would train, you know, up to 12, 15 people. And so every year I got to watch 15 new therapists and how they work. I got to interact with 15 or, you know, 5 to 10 new managers. I got to see how different clinics ran. So I got to see a big, you know, spectrum of how physical therapy is done across the United States. And it's different all over the place.
Right.
And so because of my role in the company is I was, you know, the guy who had to keep up on the research. And what I realized is the things that we're seeing in the research, the company is not set up to handle those things, because some people don't need to see a physical therapist if the problem is they need to sleep more. But the problem is the business is built on you coming in and me seeing you until your insurance money runs out.
So it's profit based more than helping based.
So not every place, but
right.
But some places. I mean, there's research. I have no problem saying it. If you're an injured worker and you go to a corporate physical therapy place, you're going to be seen for the most amount of visits. You're going to be charged the most amount of billing units. The company is going to maximize how much you're there because it pays really well. And there's research on that. That's not just me like, oh man, this system sucks.
Right.
We all know the system sucks, but there are some things in the system that are really harming people. And, you know, like we talked about, what I found was there's people on one end who just don't even have access to care. They are people with Medicaid, folks who are generally in the lower, lower income bracket, poverty, and sometimes there's this thought of like, you know, these are people on unemployment, but sometimes these are people with 2 or 3 jobs that, you know, work 67 hours a week,
through the pain,
and they're working through the pain, but they also don't have a full-time job, so they don't have insurance. Or very good insurance. And so what happens is they go to physical therapy, and there are companies right here in town. They'll say, we don't see you. We won't see you,
right,
because you don't have the right kind of insurance. And so we feel that healthcare is a human right. And so every single person who needs physical therapy, we set out to make sure everyone has a place that they can go. So that's the one side of what needed to be fixed. And then on the other side is you have folks that you probably train more of, folks that, you know, tell you I got a shoulder issue, and you all work together and you kind of modify and they can keep working, but maybe it just doesn't go all the way away. That's not, if you can still work out, if you can still exercise and kind of push around, pull around some weight, then the idea that you need to see a doctor for medicine, you don't.
Right.
If the idea that you need an X-ray or MRI, you don't, because it's not surgery related. So what you need to see is someone like me. But then when you go back to what's happening in the clinics, the big corporate kind of, sometimes in the PT world we call them mills, because it's literally you get them in. It's just like feeding cattle through. Everyone just kind of does the same thing. It's unfortunate, but what we see is people who go in really fit and active. They need something real specific, but they don't need a lot of physical therapy because they're already, they're working out with you a couple times a week. So what we do is we kind of identify the problems and then come up with a plan and then send them back to you, because that you don't need to be in the PT clinic because you're not getting the one-on-one, interaction that you give somebody. You don't get even enough strength. Literally there's runners who can run 20 miles and they go to PT and they lay on a table and lift their butt up off the table. It's just a waste,
and that's
a waste of time.
They need something more challenging than that.
Right.
So I've been seeing Ian Danis over at PT Pros off Nicholasville Road. And that's one thing I love about him. Number one, they pretty much get unlimited visits from the VA since I'm a veteran. Like literally every time I need more visits, they just call the VA, and 2 or 3 days later, the VA gives them another 3 months worth of visits. One, he's never abused that. So his whole plan is to just get me in there. Sometimes we just talk about, issues, and then work on what I need to work on. And because I am a personal trainer, I spend a lot of time in the gym. And so he's able to adapt a lot of my workouts or give me things that I can do. And then he doesn't even reach out to me to set up more appointments. He just waits for me to need them. Say I do something with my knee and I reach out, I'm like, hey, I've done something wrong. I need to come see you. And usually usually it's me because I'm freaking out because I think I might have torn something again, right? Because I'm hypersensitive to my knee because of all the issues I've had. But he's been great where I just come in, he looks at my knee. We may talk about a new system or a new set of exercises that I need to do. And then I may not see him again for a couple months. And actually the last time I think I saw him was 4 or 5, maybe 4 months ago. And, but he doesn't push to get me in there, but he's there when I need it. Or I can send him a text and I can be like, hey, I had this issue. Can you just give me some information real quick?
And this is what we try to make sure our patients have. But what's interesting or sad is a lot of people don't realize the privileges you have with that kind of insurance and that kind of a therapist is things that almost nobody gets when they go to a big corporate type place. You see really nice people, hopefully helpful people, but there's no relationships. They're so busy that it's we're just head down. Here's the 5 people that are in the room I need to help right now. And then we're, thinking in our heads crap, I got to do all this paperwork when these folks leave. And so that takes a lot of energy away from patients. So what we do is make sure that everybody gets one-on-one with their doctor. If that's what they want, you see the same person from the time you start, you see me for
so you're not getting shuffled around in 2 or 3 different PTs.
No shuffling around. Whoever you start your visits with, that's who you end your visits with.
Okay.
Because we need to make sure, again, to go back to kind of what you asked a while ago was we want to teach our patients how to fix this problem if it comes back in another year or so that the first thing that people realize is my body is capable. I am smart enough to know what tools I need and I know what tools I have. And my knee is flared up. Now I talked with Ryan. We went through these 5 things, get in the way of me being able to do what I want to do. I need to go check in on those things.
So you're not just helping people, you're teaching people,
right?
Which I'm transparency fitness. That's my whole concept is for the clients that want to be taught, I teach them so that if they decide one day, or let's say they get a job offer and they have to move to another state, I want them to walk away from me and feel confident enough that one, if I continue to make their program, say we have an online relationship, they can walk into any gym and feel very comfortable and doing the exercises I'm telling them to do because I've taught them how to do those and they feel confident. Or 2, they don't see me anymore and they make their own workout plan because, again, they've done so many different types of exercises. They understand how to do a split or whatever kind of HIIT workout, metabolic training. They understand what I was doing with them because I'm teaching them, so they understand that, and then they feel confident in doing it themselves. And
that's awesome.
That's huge for me.
Yep.
I don't want to just be their coach. I want to teach them so they can teach a man to fish kind of thing.
Yep.
And so that's my objective. So I guess kind of lay out some of the things that you and your clinic do differently. I know we've kind of touched on them, but that you and your clinic actually do differently than the average PT clinic, and kind of the way you work with people. Because I know another thing you had mentioned to me, that you guys don't ever discharge anybody, even if they can't afford it,
right,
as long as they're putting the work in.
So the big overarching umbrella is accessibility. We're going to make healthcare accessible to everybody in our community, and our community right now is the Lexington area, the Georgetown area, the Winchester area, and then the Richmond area. And so the number one thing for us is, if you need physical therapy, we will be an option for you. We prefer that we're the best fit for you. And so there's folks that, that's what we do different. If you come to me and I don't have an expert that is the best for whatever issue you got going on, but I know someone else does, we will refer you to that person, because the way I've set up my business is I don't have to see hundreds of people every week. And so that's one thing. The other difference is that goes back with accessibility is, if you need us to see you in your home, we'll make house visits. If you want, if you're traveling but you still need to check in, we can check in using telehealth, Zoom, those sort of phone calls, those sorts of things. So that's part of the accessibility. And then the other part is just accepting everyone regardless of whether they have insurance or not. Some folks with insurance, they have incredibly high copays. The insurance company says you're going to have to pay $100. So we're not going to sign that contract with the insurance company, because we want to make sure we can help you. If you can't afford it, we will work with you on a sliding scale. And so the way that the business is set up is 80% of our revenue we keep, and we give back 20% every month. So if we make $10,000 in September, right, then we have $2,000 to use for these free visits in October. And that's how we self-fund a free clinic within our for-profit business. And so that's not, as I understand it, as of today, there is one business in the whole United States doing this, and it's ours. And so I've kind of reached out to other researchers and friends I know who are in the business world, and I just don't think anyone is, I don't know, I say sometimes stupid enough to do it, or sometimes they just won't put in the energy to, it's something that I really feel is really important.
Well, this sounds more like a passion than a job.
Absolutely. It is. It's more than a business. It's it's really kind of a way of life. The PhilanthroPT is somebody who is going to take care of people who need to be taken care of. And so, and again, it goes beyond the physical therapy stuff. So if someone is what they really want to do is get off their diabetes medication, but they're having some issues where they can't come and exercise with you, right, we want to support them to be able to do that. But we go through insurance companies all the time, or if we sign some of these contracts that aren't helpful for clients, they may say, well, you can't see a patient for that reason. So we make sure that we go through all the contracts, and there's very few that we sign, because some insurances say you have 6 visits, some insurances say you have 100 visits.
Right. So you don't let insurance companies limit you from doing your job.
Right. We are the doctors, you are the patient. We work as a team and make sure that we set up a plan that you need, and it's specific to you. And then my company will go work with your insurance company and make sure you get the money that you have coming to you.
And you guys do home visits as well, right? Yeah. So you guys are not just at the clinic. I know accessibility is something that you kind of touched on, and one thing that we had talked about in the past is you guys are going to be forced to move your clinic here soon, and you're looking for a new space, but trying to find a space where it would make it easy for people to be able to get to that space if they don't have transportation.
Yeah, one of the things that we know from research is that there's a website for this, but you can look at parts of the town who are not getting the medical services that everyone else is getting, and they look at that by how many people are getting readmitted to the hospital, and how long after you get discharged, how long does it take to go back to the hospital. And so there's hot spots in every community of people who don't have good access to healthcare. And if you look at those maps, there aren't physical therapy companies in those areas, because those are the areas where people don't have the enough amount of money to pay a company, or they don't have the right kind of insurance. So what we do is the opposite. If we're really focused on accessibility, then we're going to go to those communities and provide the services that you need. And we're going to figure out how to make it all work within the business. So it's the, it's the harder way. It's not the easy way. It's the long game, but I think in the long run, it's going to be the way it should be done.
Right. Do you guys also go pick people up and bring them to the clinic if need be?
We will, but at that point,
Might as well just do a home visit.
yeah, we'll see you at your home. We also meet people at parks. Some people don't want us to go to their house for numerous reasons.
I mean,
so
who would rather you be inside at a PT clinic, or would you like to be outside on a nice sunny day working with your PT? Because a lot of the stuff that a PT does can be done with just body weight, and you don't necessarily need to be in a clinic.
My overhead was like $500. So I bought some bands, and I bought a table, and I bought a few kettlebells. And the nice part is when I work with someone who's really interested in their health and getting stronger, then they're either exercising with weights at their home, so we can do it at their home and use their equipment,
right?
Because we've got to teach them. What I don't see the use of having someone come to a big old Smith machine and work on squats that way, and then they go home and they have no equipment. So
they have no way to do it,
and so people get nervous about that. So we just really like to show folks that most people have what they need, but it takes a little bit of imagination, and that's what we do. I actually have a client
going on vacation 2 weeks from now. And he's like, man, I'm going to have to take 2 weeks off. I'm not excited about it, but I'm excited about vacation. I'm like, no, you don't, man. I'm going to give you equipment. I'm going to give you some dumbbells. I'm going to give you my Bosu. I told him I'm just going to give him a handful of equipment that he'll need outside of some body weight stuff, and we'll still do video calls. And that's why I have extra of everything, so that if I need to, I can take it to a client's house with me, or like that. I know the guy. I trust him. I'm just going to give him the equipment to take on vacation, and then we'll do a video call, and I'll make sure he still gets his workout. Right. He still is able to stick with his plan, so he doesn't get off track. Because a lot of people, that's what happens. You take a couple weeks off, you get back into it, and you're like, oh man, or you don't get back into it. And so I don't want that to happen, nor does he. So I totally get where you're kind of coming from, and having a set amount of equipment that can be on the go or in the clinic.
Yeah.
And equipment that a client could go buy themselves. So kettlebells are a little pricey compared to before COVID, but again, it's still something that people can afford. Or bands, you can get a set of bands for $10, and I'll tell you what, I have a couple clients. That's all they do. They do stretching and they do bands, because right now we're fixing muscle imbalances before I'm even going to let them touch a dumbbell.
Right, and we even buy the kettlebells that I take into people's homes. They're intentionally the cheap Walmart kind.
Okay.
Because I go in there. I don't go in there with my expensive equipment and then tell someone, oh, yeah, just buy the cheap Walmart stuff. I roll in with the cheap Walmart 5, 10, 15s, and I show folks, this is how you can use this. Oh, how much is that? Like, actually, you can get it at Walmart pretty cheap.
Yeah. 5 and below, they have a workout section.
Really?
You can get
that's great.
You can get I think they have up to 10-pound kettlebells and dumbbells. They're the plastic crappy ones, but they're $5. So you can spend $10 and get 20 pounds of weight.
Right.
You can't beat that.
And I think that the nice part about that is you get to test someone's willingness of how are you ready? Because someone is going to come and see you, and they're going to say, I need to see you now because I wore out these cheap old kettlebells.
Right.
And that's someone that's working.
Right.
And versus someone who's, I don't use those cheap kettlebells.
And I know one of the big things is that the clients that you do help and go out of the way for, they have to show you the same kind of effort that you're putting into them. I know that's a big thing for you guys, as far as, you have to show that you want to get better.
Right.
Because if they don't want to get better and they're going to fight you, then that's kind of almost a wasted cause to a certain extent.
To some extent, I think that to some degree, yes.
Okay.
We give folks a lot more leniency because of the type of people we're looking to help. So the folks that can't go to physical therapy, working 3 part-time jobs, service type work, maybe things that have job, I go to work from 4 to 10. I go to work from 5 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. I pick up my kid, then I go to my next job from 4 to 10. There is no time to go to physical therapy in there. So some of the folks we see have transportation issues. There's a lot of other things in the research, like we talked about. It's called social determinants of health.
Okay.
It's your education level, your ability to have transportation, a job that pays you a living wage, childcare needs, the part of town you live in. Like you have sidewalks here, It's really easy to tell a patient that lives in an area that has sidewalks that you really need to walk. And some of my patients live in part of town where you don't go outside after dark and there's no sidewalks and it's not necessarily the safest place to go walk. So then what do you do for someone like that? So we're trying to really figure out, I think that if someone shows up in my office, they want to get better for the most part.
Right.
95, 99% of them want to get better. And so if they're not putting in the work, we take the extra step of, why aren't you putting in the work? It's not a you're not ready for this. It's what is getting in the way.
You try to have a conversation with them.
Absolutely.
And figure out that issue.
Yeah, like I'm just tired, man. I worked mandatory overtime for the last 3 weeks, and I don't get to see my family until Sunday at dinner, and then I go right back at it again. Stuff like that. Like, you know what? Now is not really the time for therapy. You need to go hang out with your family, get a little bit of that time because that's important to you, and let's set up a program for the next couple weeks to make sure you're doing something, and you go do the life stuff that needs to get taken care of, and we'll see you when you come back in. And those are the things that can't be done in the traditional healthcare system because there's so much paperwork. Oh, the patient didn't come for 2 weeks. I have to discharge them because the company's policy is that. And so now that person has to go back to their doctor and get a script. They have to go take some more time off work to go to another doctor's appointment to get a piece of paper that says they can go back to physical therapy.
With the time they don't have.
And so these are huge problems.
So you're trying to alleviate these roadblocks.
Absolutely. There's a ton of barriers. And what I felt like I learned by reading the research at the tail end of my teaching career was none of these problems are that hard to solve. A reason someone can't get to physical therapy is because they don't have a babysitter. How hard is it for a physical therapy company to have one of their techs or have an employee be a babysitter or have babysitting experience that, hey, you know what? We got you. Bring your kids. We'll get them taken care of. Or how many people...
Because you're asking people to take a step that they don't necessarily have to.
It's not my job. and listen, man, there's physical therapists. I see it all the time on social media that I ain't doing that. That's not my job. I'm a doctor, man. Like doctors, like my doctor degree has anything to do with my humanity of being able to take care of someone. So that's what we're trying to do a little different. Let people know that there is a different way to do healthcare.
Right.
It's definitely different. It's definitely outside the box, but we're here to show people that everyone deserves the same kind of care. So here's what happens. The same places that say they're too busy to see people that can't afford them, if a doctor calls and says, oh man, my wife really jacked up her neck. Can you fit her in today? Every single physical therapist in town is going to make space for the doctor's wife or the doctor's husband or the doctor's partner.
Right.
Because they perceive that the doctor is some sort of special person. So we want to make sure that the person who just got out of rehab that doesn't have a car, isn't really, up on their feet again. We want them to let them know that not only we're going to give you physical therapy, but we're going to help you find the resources to make sure that you keep moving forward. Because if we help this back problem and you don't get a job and you go back on to the friends group that you're working out with and you end up back on the streets, not only
now
are
we're
you
just making a circle.
Your back problem isn't going to get fixed, which is something that I can help with, but then you have these hosts of other medical conditions. So they're when you look at it on paper, the problems are pretty easy to fix. What we're finding out now is you have to do work that no one else really wants to do, but it's not necessarily difficult to do. We do a lot of, if we think about how much time is wasted in the clinic on the phone with the insurance company, people pay people an hour's worth of work just to sit on hold to ask the insurance company, how many visits does this patient have? Right. So in that hour, think about what we could be, how you could use that person to say, you know what, screw you, insurance company. I don't have to do this with you. I'm going to see my patient, and then we can have people working on really important things like getting people resources, making sure that, you miss your appointment with your cardiologist. We can call while you're in therapy and be a resource for you. And so that's what we're trying to do differently, kind of being a good doctor, but a better neighbor.
Right. So you really have to build these relationships then. I mean, these people that you're helping, you're not just their PT, it sounds like. You know what I mean? Because they have to get to the point of being so comfortable with you to tell you about what's going. you have to help them get to a point where they can really unload what's going on in their life so that you can really dissect how to really help them.
And I really truly think that it's just one of those things I'm good at.
Right.
As much as I try not to talk about that stuff, as a kid, there are no strangers to me. It's not hard to go talk to people.
Exactly.
So I think that helps me. But on the other end, these people will sometimes these folks will call 3 physical therapy places over the span of 2 weeks, and every one of them says, no, we don't take you. Or you have to wait, 2 months before we can see you. And so just being the place that says, yeah, come on in, we'll see you this week, or we can see you next week, and treat them like an actual person, it makes it a lot easier for people to have those conversations.
Right. Something else you had mentioned is you even had clients that like couldn't make it in, and they felt bad canceling on you, and you just said you end up just having a conversation with them while they're driving home.
Oh yeah,
as almost like a therapy session for them.
Yeah, we had a patient who was she worked in healthcare, so her hours were crazy, and it was like, man, I messed up my hand. And we played phone tag and texted each other for a week to try to see how we could, hook up and have me take a look at this. And some things happened in her family, and there was some things that she was going out of town. I was like, listen, I'm leaving the clinic at 5. Let's just have a conversation. And I just talked with her on the way home, and just driving down the road, okay, take your hand, put it here, do this. And she was like, yeah, that makes my finger feel a little better. And so it's, a lot of these things, when you see if you call a doctor of physical therapy when you think you don't need to, there's a lot of things that we can give people that can help big time. So the like that stretch that that feeling of tightness that doesn't ever go away, like, it'll go away eventually. That's a good time to call us, because if it will go away eventually, we'll tell you. And then that doesn't cost you any money. If it could potentially be some other issue, it's good to know about that now. And, what I really like to do with what I do now is I like to give people those options. Hey, you come in for a visit. This is where you're at. It's not really at the point where you'd probably need to go to the doctor, but I really think if you did some of these things over here, this would go away, and you wouldn't even need to see me in another, a month or whatever. You'd be back doing what you want to do. But there are some people that like take that and like, man, every time that thing comes back, I do that thing you said, it feels great. And there are some people who just don't do it, and then they end up coming and seeing us for a lot longer. Like, damn, I should just right. And the thing is, like, you're making me do the thing you said to do 4 months ago.
Right.
Well, you can pay me to do it, or you can just listen the first time.
Exactly. And that kind of goes back to you teaching.
Right.
And hopefully they're listening.
And some people learn the hard way.
Right. But eventually, hopefully, they get it. So what are your plans for expansion? I mean, at some point in time, you can only see so many people with the amount of people that you have. And how, like you said, you don't want to turn anybody away, especially anybody that's going to make the effort to try to help themselves and become better. I know you're only a year in, but I mean, at some point in time, people are going to hear about you. They're going to be like, this is a place to go if you need help and you're not in that financial bracket, or you don't have insurance. What are your plans for being able to kind of expand and be able to continue to help the community?
Well, we'd like to make sure that we stay in the communities that we're helping now.
Okay.
We want to, as far as like expansion would be, we have one clinic right now, but I would like to really try to figure out how we can continue to partner with the community. So instead of getting a big corporate type, they call them big box, like instead of the big equipment, the glass windows with a bunch of cardio equipment, a bunch of machines and all that stuff, I would really like to see us in community centers and partnering with maybe the local public health department, those sort of places where we can keep our overhead low, because I mean, we're giving away 20% of our profits every month. So we're working on,
and really maybe more than that in time.
A lot more of that in time.
Right.
Because we're such a small company, like I have more of that right now.
Right.
And I hope to get to the point where I'm busy enough to.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. What do you do when you get to that point? Are you going to figure out a way to hire more PTs?
Yeah.
That,
absolutely.
And then do you think it's going to be difficult finding PTs? Because I'm sure there's going to be a certain level of like, you're going to look for a certain type of PT that understands where you're coming from as far as the business. Right?
Just a good person. That's all we're looking for.
But, you got to weed out those PTs. I'm like, this isn't my job.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're going to know from the start, because, tomorrow is where the first potential new hire that is someone that I don't know. So I have 2 other, part-time employees of people I know.
Okay.
And so there's already that trust there. So the questions of the type of people that I want to work with is, who do you see is not getting the services that they deserve?
Right.
And how are you going to help those folks? And if the people come and say, I don't know, I can see everybody and I'm happy seeing whoever you want me to. Well, I'm sure you're a great therapist and there's other places you can go. But the people who we want to see is, oh man, this particular type of athletes do not get the care they need. I know this community. I love working in this community. These are the people I want to help. Those are people I want to work with, because all I have to do is just provide the resources and just let them and support them
right
in serving the communities that they want to serve. And so those are the things that are important to me. We look at, when in very research driven, when I think about the research, like the research is very clear on, right now, me, another doctor PT and a physical therapy assistant, and we're all white. And so I know that the research says if you are someone who is black and you work with a black doctor, your outcomes are better. So the things that are important to me are not necessarily the person with the best PT skills, but the person who we need working in the communities.
Okay.
And so we serve a lot of folks in the black community. And so I think we do a good job. I know we could do a better job if one of our employees was also black and someone who understands more about black medical culture and black culture in general than what I do.
So research is huge for you.
Huge, yeah.
And the way that you analyze.
Yeah, it's where are the, I know what the needs are because the research has told us. People who don't have insurance, people who work multiple part-time jobs and are underinsured.
Underinsured, okay.
Yeah, underinsured. And then the other folks are the folks who are actually have a lot of privilege that can, to say someone has a lot of privilege, if you can afford a personal trainer, I put you you got pretty good privilege.
Yeah, I'm not cheap.
No, right. And we shouldn't be because what we provide to the community is worth that. But those folks want to, they have sought someone like you because they have a goal and they want to crush it.
Right.
And so their time is wasted in the healthcare system. And so we like to take those folks and remind them, like, you can crush your goals by seeing us 3 times, or you can go down the street and see them 13 times.
Right.
What makes more sense to you? And that's usually, we have some folks that if you go to see someone that signs those insurance contracts, you can see someone for $25 a pop. And then someone says, well, why would I pay you $137? And we just lay it out. Well, you don't have to go see your doctor, so that's going to save you a day off of work. You don't have to, I live in Winchester, and so some of these folks you don't have to drive to Lexington. They love that. The big city driving is scary for some folks outside of Lexington. So
right.
We offer those things, and they're like, oh, you mean, like one guy literally is like, you mean I don't have to go park at the hospital?
Right.
Perfect. And you can come to my house tonight? This is a no-brainer.
Right.
I'll pay your rate, and that's not a problem. But again, if someone says this is actually what I need, and I can't afford $137, then we set them up on a sliding scale or a payment scale,
and that's where that 20% comes in,
right? Yep,
and helps them out. Now, do you guys do any free outreach at all yet, or
totally.
Is that where the community stuff is? Where you're kind of build that?
That's all rolled in. So we'll go to Parks and Recs, we'll go to YMCA, we'll go to CrossFits, we'll go to gyms, things like that, and we'll just make ourselves available for 4 hours. We're just going to be here, let your people know who are hurt to come sign up, and we'll talk to whoever, first come, first serve, whoever has any questions.
That's awesome.
And so what we do is we go to...
Is there a really long line at the CrossFit place? Like out the door?
Not usually. But it's nice because it people will go do their lift and they'll see some spots and they'll come in and chat with us for a little bit, or they'll say this is the exercise that
it goes back to just
really
teaching
hurts.
them. Like probably half the people out there are in CrossFit, or let's just say at the gym, they probably don't even have a very serious issue or something that can be easily fixed by a certain stretch or a certain regiment of 2 or 3 exercises that they like, oh, yes, okay, you've got a tight hamstring. Well, do these 4 things every day for 10 minutes, and you're going to loosen that hamstring up.
Right.
Where they just didn't have the knowledge, right?
Yep. And if you want to, and we'll send you to other places. It's not about, when we go do these things, it's a community service.
Right.
Now, certainly, are there people there we can help? Yes, and we help a lot of people. But there's some people like, you know what, I just really want to use my insurance, and there's another PT I really like, or I went to this place, they were great. Right. Like, cool.
If it works.
Do you want us to call? Then at that point do you want to call and set it up, or do you want us to call and set up an appointment? We don't care. We just want to be the quarterback for these type of problems.
Okay.
So, if someone's like, man, I want this kind of therapy. I mean, I've trained dozens of people in some capacity around this area. So I know how a lot of people work. And so if you want someone that's great with exercise, I'll give you some suggestions where there's the best people in town. If you're not interested in exercise, you want more of the hands-on, cracking, whacking, stretching, those sort of thing, I got some other people that you can work with. So we just make sure people get to the right spot. And that's what's really important to us. But we make sure people know that, like, there is a difference. So if the people that live around here, they'll get this. You can get a burger at McDonald's, or you can get a burger at Malone's, and you would never expect to go spend $1 or $2 at McDonald's on something you can get at Malone's. You don't, it's just cheap. It's a cheap burger, and you can go to a corporate place and get cheap physical therapy. And it's just kind of shake and bake, and anyone can do it, because, like, you don't have to know jack about how to cook a hamburger at McDonald's. There's just a list.
Right.
Do this order. That's exactly kind of how physical therapy works in some places. It's, if someone comes in with a knee pain, do these things, and it takes the thinking work. It takes the real work out of it. Whereas someone who's...
I want someone thinking, though. And that's... Again, going back to
most people do
in PT Pros. I mean, I pretty much came to him, and actually the first time I saw him, I was like, hey man, for some reason the VA would not send me to my normal PT at Court Physical Therapy. I'm going to give you a try. But honestly, the other guy had always done a great job, because he always thought outside the box. Like, I'd come in and he would make up exercises for me, because he knew that certain exercises, like you said, were not challenging enough for me. So he had to figure out a way to challenge and, like, work on my knee, and end up doing the same exact thing for me, where he's just like, all right. And he proved to me, like, after like a month, my knee was already starting to get better, just because he was having me do things that I had never done that, like, challenged me. Like, one of the ones I hate is where I get down on my back, I put one foot on a ball, and I have to keep my butt up where my hips are, their hips are aligned perfectly. And I pull the ball to myself using my hamstring, and I do that 5 times. And then I have to pull the ball, and I just have to do almost like a glute bridge. Oh my God, that was so difficult. And it took me months to get to the point where I had any type of, I was flying all over the place. I couldn't keep my heel on the ball. But I mean, he found a way to challenge me and, like, strengthen everything around my knee. And then he gave me other suggestions, because he knew I worked out. So when I would work out, I incorporated exercises that they taught me into my leg day. And, like I said, I haven't been to see him for a couple months, just because I haven't really had any major knee issues. He got me to a point I can't go play basketball anymore, and I would never be able to, just because the knee is so broken. I have a torn meniscus, and it's got so much arthritis they won't go in and repair it. But he got me to a point where I can go run, I can walk. I mean, there was a point in time where, like, for 6 months, I literally I hobbled everywhere I went, because my knee was just swollen and so angry at me. And we found a way to get around that.
And those are the stories that we want to make sure happen, and we don't care where it happens.
Right.
We just want to make sure that it happens, and then we want to be available for the folks who don't have those great experiences, that there is still a place that you can go and actually have someone give you the time if you haven't gotten it. Regardless of your ability to pay, regardless of how important you are in town. Everybody deserves that.
Do you guys foresee yourselves at some point in time down the line, when you have a group of these PTs going into clinics and teaching, and, like, teaching other PTs kind of your philosophy or your thought process on how to work with people?
I actually owned an education company with a friend, and we did that. And okay. I did that for, pre-COVID. That was kind of the side hustle. I flew around the United States teaching folks certain things on, how to rehab folks. And I like that, but honestly, I think, through COVID, of that job goes away, and then you kind of get to think about what I really want to do.
I mean, you're going to be pretty famous after this podcast is out. So, I mean, like people.
So maybe I will after this podcast.
People are going to be pining to have you come teach.
Well, folks ask me that a lot because of my previous job, but I'm more interested in teaching the community now instead of PTs. I'm always going to teach. I'm always going to be a mentor. That's just what my job was. But the reason I say I'd rather teach the community these things now is because I know the way the healthcare is going. And I know that it's almost a waste of time.
So you think you can do a better job of teaching individuals versus other PTs?
Communities. So
communities.
That's like a population health lens. So I can go teach physical therapists on what they need to do, and then they're going to go to work in the system working for the man, and the man ain't going to let them do the things I told them to do because you have to see one patient every 15 minutes. Right. So it's a waste of my time. Or I can spend an hour of my day in a gym setting talking to 15 people who like to exercise, and I can explain to them that all of this marketing stuff of physical therapy is stuff that you can do on your own. I can teach most people how to diagnose the difference of a disc problem versus a joint problem in the back. I can tell. So there are two things that you need to know. If the pain in your knee is from arthritis, you can only say that. The first thing that you have to check, if your knee goes straight and it hurts and your knee bends and it hurts, then we can have that conversation. But if you go straight and it doesn't hurt, or if you go bend and it doesn't hurt, then it's not arthritis. That's not what it is. I can teach people that. But what happens is, you come in with a knee pain and you look old or you got grandkids. It doesn't matter what the problem is. You're getting the label of arthritis because you're old. And the doctor has 5 minutes. So it's just easy. You're 65. Your knee hurts. It's probably arthritis. And that's just a lazy way of doctoring. So we try to, we can fix that through giving people some time.
Right. Yeah, my doctor told me that I would probably need, my left knee would probably need a replacement before I'm 40. And I'm like, hell no.
Right.
that ain't happening.
Right.
And I spent the last year, knee over toe. I don't know if you've heard, I think I mentioned to him before, knees over toe. But I just researched. I got on YouTube. I watched other people's way of looking outside the box, and I talked to Ian at PT Pros, and I literally spent a year, and I've kind of built my own program from different things that people have taught me that worked, and I've given other people. I've actually, anybody that has any serious knee issues, there's a handful of people. I'm like, you know what? Here's the program I'd give you, and because some of them can't afford it, and I'm just like, you got knee problems. I know what you're going through. Do these 2 exercises every other day, 5 days a week, and I promise you, your knee's going to feel better.
Yeah, and that's where we want to set people up with knee pain to people like you, because the research is clear. Arthritis is going to progress.
Yes,
there is nothing that's going to stop it. Once you got it, you got it. It ain't getting any better. The pain can get better. The disability can get better. All those things can get better, but you have arthritis now. So when you go to the doctor, the family doctors, the knee orthopedic surgeons, they try to make it sound like the only way to get through this is a new knee. But the research, I don't have the exact numbers, but it's something like if you're walking 2,000 steps, 3,000 steps a day, you kick it up to 5,000 to 6,000. They did a study on this, and a good chunk of people who just doubled how much they walked, right, they were already on a list to get a surgery, and they decided, you know what? I don't need it.
So another thing that people can do is walk backwards.
Right.
And then
do something different.
Because walking backwards has your knee, certain muscles that don't get engaged when you're walking forwards now get engaged walking backwards. So there's been studies, and if you look at a lot of Asian countries, that's something that's been passed down, where a lot of Asian people, you'll see them in parks walking backwards because they've been taught that they don't, that when you walk backwards, it helps your knees. And if you look at the research, it shows that it's almost like 20%, it's a ridiculous number of how many knee issues they have versus how many we have. We have almost 80% more knee issues than people from major Asian countries. So something that I did is I got a sandbag, because I can walk backwards comfortably. I got a sandbag, I got a belt that goes around my waist, and I pull 40 to 60 pounds for 10 minutes and walk around my backyard over and over again. And just doing that for a month, almost alleviated a major part of my knee pain. Or working your tibialis, which is a muscle that runs right up your shin, doing these tibialis raises. A lot of people have really weak tibialises, therefore your knee when they're walking just doesn't it doesn't have that support that it needs from the tibialis. So pretty much every one of my clients, I don't care who they are, they have that in their program. And then there's a bunch of different types of calf raises. Instead of your basic calf raise, there's a bunch of different angles that you can do these calf raises. Again, helping build muscles that tend to have imbalances or weak, or are just weak. And therefore, because they're weak, your knee is stepping in to assist a muscle that has an imbalance. If we can fix that imbalance, then everything's working properly, and you hopefully have less knee pain in theory.
Yeah, totally. And that goes with, like, as I've gone through training folks and my own sort of training and through specialties and things like that, is I've gone through like the weeds of, the tibia, the anterior tib needs to turn on. I can program those things, but the more you kind of learn about something, all of a sudden it looks different to you afterwards. Right. And once I got to watch other therapists do the work while I was kind of critiquing them and grading them sometimes, what I realized, like, none of this stuff has to be that specific. The nobody in their life, not very many people in their life ever take a weight and walk backwards.
Right.
So then what we start to really try to teach folks is, we're going to do this thing. Maybe we do something like that where there's a lot of benefits for certain muscles, but we want you to do it because you don't ever do this. And we think this is a non-specific problem. This is a check engine light. This isn't an actual injury. So your body wants new input all the time. If everyone really thinks about how much our brain thinks, I mean, that's really all it does, right? If we really, like, I like to sit and meditate every once in a while. So for folks that do that, they already probably know what I'm talking about. If you sit and just listen to all the crazy shit that goes through your own head for 10 minutes, you'll realize your brain, like, reaches and grasps for things all the time. So what I think happens for a lot of folks, and kind of the out of the box and the really way we simplify things for folks, is if you sit all day, your body doesn't want to sit all day.
Right.
It doesn't want to walk all day. It doesn't want to squat all day. It doesn't want to lay on its back all day. It doesn't want to lay on its belly all day. But here we show people these are the things that your body is capable of. Make sure you tap into all of this at least twice a week. Right. So yeah, we can get into the specific anterior tib, and I think that's great for you because folks coming to me don't want to be disabled. They want to be able to play with their kids. Folks who come to you don't want to be disabled somewhat, but they also want hypertrophy and they want big muscles sometimes. And that's
weight
more
loss
important.
Is a big one.
And those are the important things. But really when it comes to the health, it's just about getting everything to work a little bit throughout the week.
I want to give people better quality of life. I mean, at the end of the day,
Absolutely.
Like, even if we're not losing a lot of weight or we're not getting as strong as we want, I want you day in and day out to be like, my life is better. That I'm, like, I physically have more energy. I feel better, and then I want to be very specific on, like, if it's weight loss or you need more functional movement or we feel like we're not as stable, and then attack those specific goals. But as a whole, just having better, healthy mental feeling every day is extremely important to me with my clients. And that, I feel like I'm very broad in, like, how I can help people. I mean, I work with people in their late 60s and I work with people that are 17 years old. And, I've got an athlete that's a baseball player, and a lot of, like, I taught him was, we worked on stretching and we've worked, and he wants some hypertrophy, but specific hypertrophy. Like, everything I pretty much have him do is dumbbells because I always want him to be off balance. I always want him, because he's going to need that on the baseball field, running, catching. Right. So I don't put him behind a bar hardly ever. He likes to do the bar when it comes to chest because he feels like that's the way to do it. So we'll do that sometimes. Yeah. But as a whole, pretty much everything I have him do is usually higher rep because it's going to wear his body out. So therefore, it increases his endurance, muscle endurance. And I have him do pretty much all dumbbells so that he's always fighting against some force. And it's not like he has the bar where everything's nice and even. He has to, when he's doing a chest press with the dumbbells, he has to have control that one isn't coming down faster than the other. And so I try to base every workout depending on who the person is and what they need. But as a whole, I want everybody to have a better quality of life walking away from working out with me.
That's great. And I think that a lot of physical therapy clinics are trying to compete with you, and there is no way they can compete with you because you have something they don't have, which is time. And so then I think about, like when we started our company is what else can I do for someone? Because a lot of what we do, we as my PT colleagues in the clinic, is we get people stronger. But I think we have I think that we have extra benefits to help people. And my thought is, you know what? If I could partner with someone like you, who like just loves this strength stuff, I get the strength stuff, I understand it, but it's not my world. It's not what I geek out on.
Right.
And so I would much rather say, you know what? Why don't we create a team?
Exactly.
And what I want to work on now, honestly, I want to work on people to be healthy and happy. And that is not what insurance pays for a physical therapist to do. So then what I get to do is talk with my patients about, like, they come and see us because what makes them unhappy is their knee hurts. But I give them the opportunity to really tell us, a lot of people will say, it's not really the knee that's the problem, is I can't pick up my grandchild, or what I really hate is I go golfing with my buddies and I have to hold on to the banister when I go up the steps into the clubhouse, and that makes me feel old around my friends. So it's the knee pain, but what else can we do to actually make you happy? Because if the knee pain goes away and you still need that railing, you're still unhappy.
That stability. We look at probably core strength is what I would look at core.
And then it goes in, but even more than that, it goes into, what are you eating?
Yes.
How much are you drinking? You're not drinking any water. You're drinking a lot of beer.
Yeah, if you're out there drinking on the golf field.
Right. Like think about all of these things. And so we get to play a much different kind of physical therapy game with folks, where we get to like really latch on to relationships, like we talked about in the beginning, to figure out what do people like really need to be happy. And sometimes people don't care about the pain. It's just that my doctor doesn't believe that this hurts me and no one's listening to me. So what we do for that person is, we do physical therapy if we feel like that could help a little bit. But what you need is, you need us to go to your doctor's appointment with you. You need an advocate to tell your doctor.
Have you actually done that for some
absolutely.
Year? Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's when we first did that was exciting to me. I really wanted to do that because I heard a lot of bad stories and I wanted to hear the story firsthand. Because here's what I really believe is, one, those stories absolutely happen where the doctor just says some really asinine things because they're stressed and probably they don't have the time that they need to really be helpful. But then the patient leaves thinking that they're broke or something's wrong, and they get misdiagnosed, mismanaged, and that mentally affects.
Yeah, physically,
mentally, they're just unhappy because they're worried now. And so one time I was on the phone with my patient. She's like, "Hey, listen, this guy says, we've talked about her shoulder problem. I kind of told her what I thought it was. I told her what I thought it was not, and she went to the doctor." And the physician assistant said, this is what it is. And it was the thing we said it is not. So she called me and she's like, hey, I'm at the doctor's office right now. PA's in the room. He just said it was that thing we didn't talk about. Can you talk to them? And I'm like, oh shit, this is really where the rubber meets the road. Like now I'm really got to have this conversation. And it was fun because I kind of asked the physician assistant, like, what test did you do? Well, I didn't do any tests. She said it hurts here, so I'm going to inject it. And so, like, I'm not a physician assistant, but I know the guidelines. The guidelines say you need to test it.
Right.
And none of that happened. And then when they did the test, they were negative. Still wanted to inject it, but my patient had been, some people will call brainwashed. Some people, I'll call it educated. My patient knows that, you know what? We had a relationship, and my therapist kind of explained this to me and showed me by moving me around what this was and what this isn't.
Teaching.
And you haven't done jack shit. And I don't trust you enough for you to put that needle in me, so she didn't get the injection. And that doesn't make people happy. Doctors don't like that. And I don't want people to talk to me, tell me that what I'm doing is wrong. But at the same time, it's my responsibility to provide the best care possible to my patients. And if my patient is going to, someone that I work with is going to go to a doctor that like clearly is just scheduling an MRI for no, if you're going to get an MRI, we should be talking about like something needs to be cut out. There needs to be a surgery. And if the doctor's like, no, I don't think you need surgery, well, let's just take an MRI anyway. That's a waste of time.
How many patients have you had, or clients that the doctor wanted to do surgery and you were like, no. And then you pretty much proved to the doctor, or like showed the patient that there's an alternative, and you were able to get them, keep them from getting surgery, but still helping them fix whatever issue that they were having.
When I was teaching every year it would happen. And it wasn't, I never tried to convince the doctor, because that's just a conversation. I didn't want to get yelled at on the phone. That's going to happen.
Right.
So I just showed the patient. So here's the thing. Someone, this is the worst arthritis I've ever seen in the knee. And then, so the pain is because you have bone on bone, which means to me, if the pain is because your knee is bone on bone, then there is nothing I'm going to do to make the pain go away, because your bones are rubbing on each other.
Right.
So if we can put people in positions, toes out, heels up, sit back, knees forward, and then all of a sudden the pain goes away, that really challenges that narrative of this is a bony problem. Because that's the question.
Like, you don't feel like they're doing a good enough job to really test to make sure that is the actual issue.
No, man. If you're I'm telling you, if you're 7 years old and your knee hurts, your doctor's going to take an X-ray and they're going to say you need a surgery. If they're a knee surgeon, that's what's going to probably happen. So that's, but I don't blame it necessarily, because it's just a broken healthcare system. Because the way it should work, you should not end up at the knee surgeon's office unless you've tried conservative care, physical therapy, personal trainer, chiropractor, something like that,
right,
for 3 to 6 months. You've done what you're supposed to do. It's still not better, and these X, Y, and Z tests are positive. If that happens, then you end up at the surgeon, and the surgeon's like, man, you've done everything you're supposed to do. That's not what happens. Someone gets a knee pain. They go to their family doctor. The family doctor doesn't know how to treat knee problems. The family doctor wants to keep your diabetes under control with medicine. That's what they want to do. So they just, well, I'll send you to the knee surgeon because they know about this knee stuff. And so you get sent to the knee surgeon, and now you're at the wrong doctor. You're at your first line of defense should have been your last line of defense.
Right.
And now they're managing things that they're now trying to manage rehab, and that's not what they do. They're surgeons. They want to cut it and fix it and then send you to rehab. So
now there are times that getting surgery is necessary for the knee.
Yeah, absolutely. But so meniscus, if we want to talk about research about meniscus, there are studies, and this is a good study done. I mean, it was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. So if half the people got a incision, they cut the skin and they sewed the cut back up, no other surgery. Half of the people actually had a scope debridement of the meniscus. So one person has a scar, so they think I had the surgery. Another person had the surgery, and 6 months later, both of those people do just as good as each other.
Interesting.
So it's not hard to say at this point now that because we have enough evidence that knee scope surgeries are highly ineffective surgeries. So the things where the doctor goes in and just cleans out your knee, they're I don't want to say they're ineffective because they do help. But if you do 6 months of conservative care, your outcomes at 6 months are the same.
So this are very similar,
so I'm not saying that surgery is bad, but I'm saying we have to have the conversations with people.
Right.
And so, I'd go teach therapists and they have this all the time. So Ryan, you say no one needs this surgery? I'm saying no. But when you go to physical therapy and the therapist just pretends that therapy is going to fix it and you don't give them the option, you're doing them a disservice. If you go to the surgeon and they say you need to have the surgery and therapy is not an option, you're doing someone a disservice. So if you're the person who, I can't do my job right now, I'm losing money, I can't support my family because my knees bother me, then go get the surgery, because your short-term benefits are going to be, you're going to be back in work in 2 weeks. The problem is, in 3 years, you're 3 times more susceptible of needing a knee replacement. Not in 3 years. In your lifetime, you're 3 times more susceptible of needing a knee replacement surgery.
Oh, wow.
So if you're someone who maybe you see, my knee is bothering me, it's bone on bone, it's arthritis, they want to go in and clean it out, but they're still able to do their exercises, and they're able to get out of their car, and they're able to do what they need to do, stick with you for 6 months.
Yeah.
And this is going to be just as good. And now you're not going to be 3 times more likely of needing a knee replacement in your lifetime.
Right. And I'd put them through my knee program that I've kind of developed, and I'm still always working on it, always looking for new exercises. And I would probably send them to a PT. Like, I have no problem referring someone to a PT if I think that they need a PT. Someone like yourself or like my buddy Ian over at PT Pros, or people that I trust that I know will actually take the time to diagnose it, because you guys do have a larger knowledge base than I do when it comes to understanding how the body functions. So I would keep them going through my program as long as they could do it. And if I feel like they were still having issues after a couple months, I'd be like, well, maybe go see a PT. I probably wouldn't send them to. I wouldn't want to send them to a doctor because I don't know what a doctor is going to do for them.
I don't think you should. If it's someone who is, if it is someone who has a musculoskeletal problem, and it's just like a nagging injury, there is zero reasons why I would suggest that you go to your family doctor before you see one of my experts. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not saying that you should necessarily just go to any physical therapist, because not all physical therapists are created equal.
Well, I'd only send them to somebody that I knew would actually like yourself, or like someone that I knew, and maybe they couldn't go see you guys due to their insurance or whatever. But I'm
going to interrupt you there, because that never happens with my company. There is
that's true.
There is zero people that we will not see because of money insurance reasons.
But to actually see someone that's going to take the time that I did to really try to diagnose the issue, because again, it goes back to there's only so much knowledge I have as a personal trainer, and I'm sure over the next 10 years that knowledge is going to get larger and more, because people like yourself, and I'm sure I'm going to work alongside, and you better believe anytime you're ready to teach me, I'm going to be sucking that up. I'm going to be learning it like a sponge.
Both ways, yeah.
But getting them in front of somebody that has a better knowledge base that can, really make a decision of what they need to do from there. And I do agree that going and seeing a doctor and then spending all this money on MRI or x-rays or things, in a lot of cases, you're going to have the same outcome. You need to go see a PT. Yeah. And you need to go see a personal trainer.
And it's research. If you want to spend more money on physical therapy, go to your family doctor first.
Right.
If you want to get unnecessary injections, go to your doctor first. Your family doctor, your family medical doctor. If you want to spend more money, that's where you go first for achy bones, sore muscles, sports injuries. And the research is clear. And in Kentucky, we're super lucky because we have direct access here, which means you can see a physical therapist first without a referral. And there's going to be people who say you have to have a referral, and that's not because you need a referral. That's because they don't get paid until you give them the referral. Right. So then that's another barrier to access, where what we will do is we'll see you tomorrow, and then we will work with your insurance company to make sure that gets paid. But you need care right now. We give you care when you need it, and then we deal with the insurance money and the insurance on the back end. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you want to help people.
Right. And if you see us today versus in 3 weeks when your doctor, you have a time to, this problem could be gone already.
Right. Like, yes, you go see a doctor and it's taken you a month to get to a PT or get to any kind of help, when you're like, oh, yeah, this is something that I've seen all the time. Do these 3 things or whatever. Do this list of things. Come see me once a week for the next couple of weeks. And I almost guarantee you that you're not going to have that pain.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that 1 or 2 little things to do over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. And you see us 1 time, maybe 2 times. And a lot of times that's what a lot of people need.
So where do you guys want to be in 5 years? Like, what is your 5-10 years, what's your long-term goal? I mean, so you're a year in. I think you have a better identity of who you are and what you want to do now. So
in 5 years, what I'd like to see is that we are branching out of physical therapy. So we will still provide physical therapy, but I want to be able to provide other social services for folks. So, going back to the things that actually affect health, it's not going to physical therapy. It's having housing and transportation and childcare services. So those are the things that we are going to start branching into to make it even easier for patients to be able to go see their doctor.
So you want to be able to help people get jobs.
So that's one of the things that we're going to do. We just hired an admin who is going to be taking care of our billing and our scheduling. And so what we want to use her for is she will be our trainer. And so what I want to be able to do is take people who graduate from a recovery center, or they graduate out of now they got a job, they're in stable housing, they're no longer going through the shelter system. What we want to do is provide only those people with an opportunity for a job. So it's not, if you have great sales and you worked in a medical facility before, but you have a job or you want to get a different job, that's not really what we're looking for. What we're looking for is people who need jobs, the quote unquote, the unhireable folks. So the people who have had previous felonies, people who have got out of the prison system, the recovery, like I said, the recovery. Right. And so we will bring you in our company. And the company right now is I'm not able to pay people a 401k. I'm not able to pay for people's insurance because we're not big enough.
Do you hope to be able to do that down the line?
I don't know. I think yes, but also maybe not. Maybe what we are is just kind of the incubator where we can take people. I think I've heard this from other people. We would never hire an ex-con to work in the hospital. There's certain laws that says you can't do that in certain type of settings, but there's some places you can. So if we can get someone to come in and work with us for a year, we will train them on how to be good in the healthcare system at medical billing and coding. But also we know that someone that gets out of a recovery program doesn't need just a job. So we want to make sure we give them the job, but I want to be able to have real estate. Not Ryan Shelton owns real estate, but PhilanthroPT invests in homes where we can kind of have like transitional housing, where when you work with us for a year, you stay in this apartment for a year, and after that year, you graduate, and we go get you a job maybe at UK.
Because now they have they have work history, they have a reference,
and we're your advocate,
right? And
we go to UK and say, and I'm just saying UK because it's just a big employer. And where we want to get them to is, we'd love to have you, but if you really want to be successful, you need a job with insurance. You need a job with a 401k, and we can't provide that. We're the transition. We can get you into stable housing and stable employment and mental health services and get an understanding of what you need so you can not just survive, but like get back in the community and do the things that make you happy.
Right. I think
that's
awesome.
What we like to do. And in 10 years, what I want is no people get discharged from the hospital. And, here's what'll happen. Someone that's experiencing homelessness, doesn't have stable housing, they may completely un-PT related. They get discharged for an infection and they need to take an antibiotic, but the antibiotic needs to be refrigerated, but they don't have a house and they get discharged. So the wound isn't going to heal. These are the simple fixes. All that person needs is electricity. That's what we need. So how do we put this person into a home for 2 weeks with a CNA, someone to be there and make sure they get everything they need to get them through their treatments. Right. And then, after that, then there's another problem. Then they need, where do they go from there? I don't know.
But maybe
doing what we can do.
Go back to that, give them a job. Because, some people don't want to be helped.
Totally.
But the people that do, you want to give them that opportunity.
Yeah, that's it. Accessibility. But it's more than just accessibility to getting, your hamstring stretched from a therapist. It's really health. It's not just physical therapy, because physical therapy isn't health. Physical therapy is a great service. It's a great profession, but there are no physical therapists who's going to help you get healthier. It's just one small piece of the health puzzle, and healthcare is only one small piece of the health puzzle.
I think it's awesome. I really do. I believe in your guys' mission 100%.
Well,
I really want to see you guys succeed. So we're kind of finishing up here, but is there anything you want to say just in general about the business, or anything you just want to put out there for people?
I just want to make sure that people know that if you have any sort of issues that you want to talk to someone about, we have a 24/7 number you can call. You can call our number. You can text that number. You can email my company. We are. I want people to know that we're here for when someone puts a barrier up. That's when you should call us. And we'd ideally like people to call us before that, but a lot of people don't know that. They don't know that they're going to run into a barrier. So if you're having troubles getting into your doctor, if you're having troubles finding a physical therapist, if you've been kicked out of physical therapy because your insurance runs out or you can't afford it anymore, but you need it, we want people to know that as we understand it, there are very few options for people like that.
Or no options.
Yeah. There's no private options. There's no experts other than us who will do that. Now, in Lexington, we have a really great pro bono clinic that's ran through the University of Kentucky PT school. That's awesome. The downside is that you won't necessarily see the same therapist. So sometimes you have people that are there with a stroke. That is not my forte, but sometimes someone like me would be the therapist there. So you're going to get services, but we want to make sure that we can make sure that you get to the actual specialist that you need. And so, and we just want to be able to connect people. So if you're having troubles finding those places, that's what we want to do right now. We're in the find, the seek and destroy right now.
And what's that phone number and email for the people that are listening? We'll pop it up for the people that are viewing this via YouTube.
Yeah. So the number is 502-735-1782.
All right.
And then you can find us at PhilanthroPT. So I'll spell it PhilanthroPT. So it's the word philanthropy.
Right.
But just replace the Y at the end with a T. That's us. And you'll know, like, I don't wear my swag because, like, this is what you get. I usually have some sort of punk rock and roll T-shirts. I don't wear a white coat. If you want to see a doctor with a physical therapist with a white coat, you won't want to see me. I don't shave. What I care about is treating people right and getting people the services that they deserve at a very high level. I don't have time to worry about looking pretty because that's not the kind of guy I am. We are just real people. I have some employees who like to dress up. That ain't me. So, and I work with people who, wear the same clothes a couple days in a row because they don't have a lot of clothes. So I don't want, I want people to feel comfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's
absolutely. So
that goes back to building those relationships so you can help people.
Yeah.
So, well, Ryan, thanks for coming on. This was awesome. And maybe as you grow, maybe we can get you back onto the podcast and you can tell us kind of where you're at down the line.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. It was awesome. It was fun.
Awesome. Well, you guys have a good one. And as always, we'll catch you next time.